Imagine dying as a pâtissier one day, and being reincarnated as Pastry, son of casserole. That was exactly what happened to our protagonist. It's the second and final day of the Pâtissier World Tournament, and the contestants are all creating magnificent candy sculptures. Our hero, nicknamed the Pâtissier's Chosen One, created a brilliant phoenix out of sweets. He was going to fulfill his childhood ambition of becoming the world's best pâtissier. The competition was fierce because the other contestants' sculptures were equally impressive. When all the contestants had finished their candy sculptures, they proceeded to move their creations to the judging area. Our protagonist and his teammate was moving the massive phoenix sculpture when he felt weak. His sculpture fell and hit him on the head. He collapsed, leaving a pool of blood around him. He realized he was dying and regretted not being able to realize his childhood dream of creating a land of the world's greatest sweets to bring a smile to everyone's face. He blamed God for being so cruel when he heard a holy voice. It was God. God gave him a second chance at life and gave him the name Pastry Mille Morteln. He felt a surge of holy energy enter his body, and he was reborn. He was reborn as Pastry, the son of Morteln's suzerain lord Casserole. Morteln was originally a barren land that couldn't even grow wheat, but after 20 years of hard work cultivating the soil, his father and the villagers have grown their land to 3 villages of about 40 people each, with fertile land capable of growing both wheat and barley. Pastry, now 9 years old, was learning swordsmanship from his father. He was born into a happy family that included his father, a military hero, his loving mother, and 5 older sisters. However, because sweets were his entire life before reincarnation, his only complaint was that Morteln couldn't grow any sugar, so getting sweet things was difficult. He was daydreaming about making sweets when his father caught him off guard, causing him to lose the duel. Feuille, one of his father's lieutenants, comes to inform his father of some good and bad news. The good news was that their bean fields would yield an outstanding harvest that year, thanks to Pastry's modern knowledge of sprinkling lime on the soil to boost crop yield. Pastry becomes ecstatic upon hearing this news and begins rambling about the various dishes that could be made with beans. His father was suspicious as to how he knew all of that, but he simply told him that it was all in his head. He couldn't tell his father he was reincarnated because it would make him look like a weird kid. Nonetheless, Morteln had benefited from his modern knowledge in recent years. However, bad news arrived. It turned out that attempts to defeat bandits in another county had failed. About 50 of the remaining bandits have escaped and are heading in their direction. The bandits were predicted to show up in 2 months. Their only chance of survival was to round up the villagers and use pikes and slingshots to drive the bandits away. Pastry assessed the situation and determined that even if they drew men from all 3 villages, they would only receive 30 men at most. As a result, they are outnumbered. His father considers requesting reinforcements from Count Ret, but Feuille knows that the Count would refuse because if they defeated the bandits that the county failed to defeat, the Count would be seen as incompetent, destroying his reputation. Pastry was worried because it seemed simple to him. If the bandits arrive, they will wreak havoc on their fields, destroying their beans and wheat, which he needed to make sweets. Feuille thought Pastry was acting with determination because he was the suzerain's next lord. But in his heart, he vowed to destroy anyone who got in the way of his dream of creating a land of sweets. Feuille's instincts told him that they couldn't just win the fight. They had to take a huge risk. He proposed that they use Pastry as their trump card. Pastry's father was puzzled. How could they use Pastry, a 9-year-old child, as a trump card? But then he realized that the sanctification ceremony was exactly what they required. The sanctification ceremony was the world's coming-of-age ritual, and it bestowed magical powers on those who participated. Back at home, Pastry's father informed everyone that he was going to bring Pastry to the sanctification ceremony. Pastry's mother was concerned that he was too young for the ritual, which was usually reserved for those between the ages of 13 and 15. But thanks to his knowledge from his previous life, Pastry was quite accomplished both academically and in swordsmanship, making him more than qualified. His mother wished for more time with Pastry as a child, but his father had already decided that they would leave in 3 days. His mother and sister were both suspiciously enthusiastic and happy to help after his father told them to prepare for his outfit. He called to his father for help, but his father just said that he was eating. Their family's women had a habit of cross-dressing the youngest son inside the house, and his sister was even willing to lend Pastry her precious shoes. Back then, It was even worse when his older sisters were present. Pastry was exhausted from his mother and sister's antics on the day of their departure. His friends came to see him off, including Luminito, who is surprisingly a girl, and Marcarullo. His father used teleportation magic to transport them to the capital city, Bovaldia, in an instant. Pastry was astounded by the number of people and new things he was seeing. Pastry's pâtissier spark was instantly lit when he saw some brown sugar and fruit, especially since he had so few sweet things back at Morteln. He fantasized about the desserts he could make with these. His father promised him that if he passed the sanctification ceremony, he would buy him whatever he wanted. When he saw some delicious sour apples and thought of the delicious dishes he could make with them, he decided what he would buy. Pastry's father misinterpreted his love of desserts as a talent for inheriting Morteln and creating a rich land with a strong army, whereas Pastry was dreaming of creating a land full of sweets you can eat. They arrived at the church and encountered a priest who looked like a panda. The priest seemed to admire the Lord of Morteln and praised him for his achievements. Casserole, Pastry's father, informed the priest that they had come for the true sanctification ceremony. The priest was shocked, as Pastry was only 9. Back at home, Josephine, Pastry's older sister, was asking Foy about the true sanctification ceremony. Foy explained that they first assess a person's magical power and then restrain them while covering their eyes. Back at the church, we see the priest complete the final step, feeding Pastry a bitter liquid and then locking the door, leaving Pastry alone in the dark, unable to see or hear anything for days, while a magical timer determines when someone can be let out. Foy explained that magic is a great power hidden deep within a person that can only be drawn out by enduring hardship on your own. Pastry was left alone in the room for 2 days, suggesting that he carried great power. But Pastry wasn't stressed at all. In fact, he was filled with joy, picturing all the sweets he could make with the sugar he could get, filling the world with sweets and smiles, and creating the world's very own land of sweets. While he was imagining a beautiful land of sweets, he was brought into a bright light and felt magic enter his body. When the time came for Pastry to be released, his father praised him for enduring the entire 2-day process. The priest finished by reading a scripture to Pastry, which should have meant something to him if he had truly discovered his power within him. He saw fleeting memories of his previous life after hearing the scripture and realized that his magical skill was replication. While absorbing magic, he shone brightly. The priest told him that he had gained power that was almost unheard of in that day and age. Pastry's father expressed gratitude to the priest and made a donation to the church. Pastry was now faced with the most important decision of his life: which apples were better. After seeing Pastry's enthusiasm, the merchant threw in 2 of the best apples for free. Meanwhile, the priest was making fun of Pastry's father for donating in silver coins. He said that it would not be sufficient to keep his mouth shut. Pastry bit into the apple and was blown away by how delicious it was. He hadn't eaten an apple in years. He asked his father not to tell his mother and sister that they had eaten the best ones, and his father agreed.